Proverbs 2:20-22. So that you walk in the way of good people, and stay on the paths of righteous people, because upright people will live in the land, and people of integrity will remain in it. But wicked people will be cut off from the land, and treacherous people will be torn out from it. So what Solomon says is that your company of righteous or upright people will allow you to remain in the land. Remaining in the land is a very Hebrew idea. Because God's promises made to Abraham were connected to the promised land, most of the Old Testament focuses on the idea of living in the land. That specific spot on the ground was the foundation from which God was going to give all his promises to his people. God's people forfeited those promises. We can see that very obviously played out in the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, but also in the words of Jesus, that he said that his body, is the temple, and that connection to him is really to live in the land. Paul echoes this thought in Romans 9 when he says that not all Israel is Israel. The land isn't what matters anymore. What matters is the faith that Abraham had, which is the faith that saves. You can see that in Romans 4, Romans 9, 10, 11, etc. So when we read remain in the land, we ought not think so much of a specific spot in the ground, but of a status that looks forward to a new spot on the ground, the new heavens and the new earth. See, sometimes people who have an eschatology, that's a study of the end times, different than us, will say that there is going to be this idea of a rapture someday, that all the Christians are going to be taken away and the non-Christians are going to be left behind. Actually, the way Jesus tells the parable of the woman in the field is actually the opposite, that the Christians are going to be the ones left behind who are going to live in the new heavens and the new earth. And those wicked people, those deceitful people, those people who have not trusted in Jesus for salvation, they are the ones who are going to be taken away. And while this is not really a lesson on eschatology, this section of the Proverbs reaffirms that idea, that for Christians who live upright lives, that being a life of repentance before God, understanding that I don't by my nature live an upright life, but that I need God to give me the wisdom to live an upright life, I will remain in the land. This life will continue with more life. When my body is resurrected at the end of time, I will live in the land of the living. And so how do we get that? Well, obviously properly through Jesus Christ, but what the Proverbs are going to tell you here is that comes from surrounding yourself with other righteous people. Paul will say in 1 Corinthians that bad company corrupts good character. In other words, you can be a Christian, you can be a good person, but if you don't surround yourselves with influences that keep you on that path, well, then you will quickly fall away. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be friends with non-Christians, but I am saying that you ought to guard yourself in those relationships, and also make sure that your relationships are primarily filled with those who will encourage your faith, who will spur you on to good deeds, who will encourage you to meet together with other people who worship the same God, to hear his word and to receive his sacraments. All of those things will keep you on that path. And so the fear of the Lord, once again, is the beginning of wisdom, because the fear of the Lord encourages you to stay among God's people. Especially now, as I make this video, we continue to be in a lockdown in Ontario because of the coronavirus. Maybe when you're watching this, that won't be the case anymore. But the challenge we are currently facing is whether we actually want to do this. Do we actually want to be around other people who will encourage us in our faith? Or do we rather find our relationships on Facebook or in Netflix, or not at all? See, those things will lead you away from the righteousness that God offers you. So surround yourself with people who will encourage you down that path. Righteous people, upright people. And as you walk along the road with them, you will not be tempted to fall off with those wicked who deny God and push him away. That's how to grow up.